What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. In this video, we're diving into another Cyber format deck. Now, if you don't know, Cyber format is the format based around September 2005 in the TCG. It uses the GOAT format ban list along with cards up to Cybernetic Revolution, which includes things like Cyber Dragon and its associated fusion monsters, along with things like Xarian Universe. Now, there's a lot of decks that you can play in the format, but it seems like the best ones right now are Stein OTK strategies, where you try and turbo out Stein as fast as possible and go for a ton of damage by bringing out a Cyber End or a Cyber Twin. Now, Cyber Stein needs you to have 5,000 life points to actually activate its effect. So a deck that you might consider playing in the format is something like Panda Burn. You know, it's a common deck in GOAT that you see often. You can do very well there. So it stands to reason that since it is doing burn damage, you could potentially take advantage of that to burn out the Stein decks before they can actually set up their Stein plays, and then you can sort of just slowly burn them for the rest of the way over the course of the game. So I think this deck has some promise, and I'm not the best burn player by any means. In fact, this list is just, straight up copied from Maro13, who managed to do very well with this list in a recent GOAT tournament. And I figured, it should probably work pretty similarly to how it does in Cyber format. Cybernetic Revolution and the Tins didn't really release too many new burn cards that you can just slot into this sort of deck. That did release some other burn cards that I will be getting to in other videos, but I don't really think they fit in a typical Panda burn deck. But I do think that this deck is pretty decent. And so I'd like to just try it out, see how this does in Cyber format, whether it has legs here or not. And I'm sure that there are things you could do to further adapt it to this format, but I haven't done that in this video. That will be for other people to figure out if they are passionate about making this deck work in Cyber format. But let's just go through the card by card real quick. We got Big Shield Gardener to just be a big defensive booty that deals with like knock and other things like that. It's a little bit awkward in this format because the opponent special summons out Sidra, summons out another monster. They can get over this because it switches to attack after a monster attacks into it. So, they take 5 from the Cyber Dragon attack and then they just hit over it with whatever else they have. But, you have ways to protect this, and, I still think it's good to have that defensive body and get in some damage against your opponent with it. We also got a Breaker to pop our opponent's stuff. We got Cyber Jar to draw deeper in our deck. We got Double Disc Koala to burn our opponent for hand size. We've got an Exiled Force here to deal with any threats that they might have. We've got Triple Giant Rat here, which can go into a variety of monsters in our deck, including the Yakugiri Pandas, which pair very well with the Ojomatrios and things like that. We've got Injection Fairy Lily as well to get in for a ton of damage. We got Morphing Jar. We got Sangan here. And for these spells, we got Double Trunade and a Heavy. We've got a Graceful Charity. We've got a Level Limit Area B ×2. We got Pot of Greed. We got Swords of Revealing Light here to stall out our opponent a bit longer. We got Ceasefire here. Desert Sunlight, both these can be good at stopping your opponent's knocks, although Ceasefire will negate your own flow effects. Desert Sunlight will not, which makes it kind of nice, but Ceasefire will deal burn damage as well. We got Double Gravity Bind to stall even more. We got Triple Dust Deserts to deal damage to our opponent, especially when they've got tokens on their side of the field with something like Ojomatrio. We've got Triple Nightmare Wheel to stall out our opponent and burn them as well. We got Rain Destruction, and we've got Triple Secret Barrel. For the side deck, it's kind of a hodgepodge. I think that's probably the place where, this deck could be adapted the most to Cyber format, because I feel like the main deck is still pretty good, but the side deck maybe could play things like Threatening Roars, for instance, if you are worried about the Stein OTK, and you want to play around Trunade and stuff like that. Maybe more Karibos as well. But I think the side deck is okay. It just isn't quite tailor-made to Cyber format, and maybe I should have adjusted it before diving into some games with it, but I think it's still okay. And there are some things that you can bring in. You can bring in the Cypher Soldiers against Warriors. You can bring in things like Magic Drain against Stein OTK as well, because they have to, use spells for their combos. So there are a couple different things that you can bring in against that deck, even if this side deck isn't really sort of tailored for it. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. We do have a fusion deck here as well, which we'll likely never go into, but it is good to have. And I think this deck is really cool, so let's dive into some games with it. Okay, we're diving into some games against Jim Bob. If you're going to get on some channel, always a pleasure to have them on. We are playing the burn deck, and please forgive me if I make any misplays with this burn deck. I'm already not the best burn player in GOAT format, and Cyber format, there's a lot of other things to consider here. So, it's a bit of a tricky deck to play in the best of circumstances, but we're kind of in uncharted territory in this format specifically. So what we're going to do to start is we're just going to set our 3 traps here, and then set the Giant Rat pass back to our opponent. We got Desert Sunlight to protect it against something like a knock, for instance. We've got Ojomatrio plus Secret Barrel, so we can deal some burn damage if they do have like Heavy Storm or something. And we can actually go for Ojomatrio in the standby phase just to dodge around Cyber Dragon, which is a card that people are playing. Now the question is, do we want to dodge around Cyber Dragon? I think yes. If you don't know what your opponent's playing, you want to stop them from going like Sidra into a Narc, right? Like a Zaborg to pop our Giant Rat. That would be pretty bad for us. So I personally just, fired the Ojometrio right away. If they're on a Stein Gate deck, then that's bad for us because they get a monster tribute off here. But in that case, if they had a Sidra in hand, they'd get a monster tribute off anyways. So I feel like it's better to play around the Stein Arc stuff than the Stein Gate stuff. So I just go for Onogeometrio in the standby phase. So playing around Sidra, maybe it wasn't the right choice, but I did just go for it there. And they're going to go for a graceful draw 3. And they're going to pitch a Reaper and a Scapegoat. So yeah, Scapegoat's kind of dead there. They go for a heavy. We go for Secret Barrel. And we're just going to go for Desert Sunlight to play around knock. Yes, they know that we are on a Giant Rat here, but I don't want them to just knock our set and then get in for damage. So they are going to set 2, pass back to us. That's perfectly fine by us. We draw Heavy Storm. That's really good. I think I'm just going to fire it now. We've got a Trunade as well if we want to get aggressive later. And it's just good to get the sort of removal early. And we hit a TT and a Saku. That's pretty good. We're going to hit into one of the tokens to deal some damage here. Trying to get them below that 5,000 range. They're 5,900 right now. If we clear all their tokens, then that'll get them down to 5,300. But we got this Lily to also deal additional damage there later. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. They go for an Ojama token, unfortunately, and then they go for a creature swap, tributing over our Giant Rat to hit into this token. That's very unfortunate for us. We'll take 2,400 because the tokens just, deal damage to the controller when it's destroyed. So kind of an awkward spot for us to be in there. We also lose our Rat, which is rough. And we draw Sangan, which is okay. We go for the Trunade here because I really want this Lily attack to go through. We attack over the Cyber Dragon. This drops them below the 5,000 life point threshold, so I'm feeling good if they do have Stein stuff. The unfortunate thing is if they've got, Snatch Steal on our Lily, that's going to be really bad. But I feel like it is important just to clear the Sidra, get in the damage. And if they do have it, they've got it, right? We're probably losing either way if they've got Snatch Steal or something. But they're just going to go for a DD Warrior here, or DD Assailant, that is. So we got to think about this. We will just take the 2,000, get rid of that DD Assailant. They take some damage there as well, and we're losing our Lily either way. We draw Morphing Jar, so we're just going to set that pass back to our opponent, try and draw into more burn spells because we're at the point in the game where we could potentially win through that. So they bring out a DD Warrior Lady, they attack into our set there. We discard the Sangan, they discard a Mirror Force. Happy to see that gone. And we draw okay. Secret Barrel only deals... they've got 8 cards now, and then they'll have 9 after drawing. So we'll only deal like 1,800. We needed another burn card to really take advantage of that. We do have Big Shield Gardna as well to sort of wall up a bit. So we draw Just Desserts as well, and that's pretty good. So we set the Big Shield Gardna, the Just Desserts, and the Secret Barrel. The reason I do this is because I don't want to play into something like a TT or a Saku. I guess TT's gone, but I don't want to play into another Saku, which we do know that they are playing in the main, so I don't want to just summon out Panda, attack into a token. So I decide to go defensive, and I figure if I'm going defensive, I should do the one that plays around knock. And if they try to attack into it to clear it, then they will take damage, and then we can probably burn them out with the Just Search or Secret Barrel there. So I'm feeling okay about this. Unfortunately, they do have MST to snipe our Just Desserts there, so we won't be able to pull that off. And our opponent's going to banish a Light and a Dark, go for a BLS here in defense, and they are going to use Prio to banish our Big Shield Gardna, summon out a Tri-Infecting Virus, and unfortunately this will be lethal damage. So that's going to be the end of that game there. Maybe I was a bit too greedy in some of my plays. Maybe I was a bit too anxious to get them down below the 5k range, especially, summoning out Lily to attack into Sidra. Maybe that was too greedy. But I think it was fine, honestly. And you got to sort of play this deck differently in Cyber format, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to play it. But, maybe I was just too aggressive there. But anyways, we're going to go into this game 2. Go for the Graceful, pitch a Swords and Gravity Bind because we already have the level limit area B in hand. And I feel like everything else here is also pretty good. So we're just going to set Secret Barrel, set Ring, pass back to them. If they've got heavy, they've got heavy. We can at least, deal some damage with the Secret Barrel, but unfortunately they've got Death's Wombat, so we won't quite be able to deal damage with that Secret Barrel. They're going to go for a knock there, banishing our Rat. They're going to try attacking in for 16, and since we want to clear that, we're just going to go for the Ring, popping that, and since it is destroyed, they will indeed take this damage. So they're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a Geometry, which is really good. We bring out the Breaker. I figure if it's Saku, it's Saku. This trade's 1-for-1 either way. And if it is something like Sakuretsu Armor and stuff, it does get Breaker off field, so they can't go for Cyber Dragon here. So I'm fine if they clear the Breaker. They didn't. We're just going to pop that back row. It was a creature swap, and we set the Ojometry pass back to them. And in standby phase, we do go for the Ojometry yet again. Doesn't seem like they're on Stein Gate. Seems like they might even be on a Warrior strategy. So I'd rather just, give them the token to prevent a Cyber Dragon from coming down. They do have Tsukuyomi here, which will be able to flip down our Breaker, unfortunately. They'll be able to clear that, but we've got Gyakugiri Panda here to attack into those tokens next turn. We got Just Desserts as well, which is really good. We're just going to bring out the Panda, and we're going to try attacking into a token. If it eats removal, it eats removal, but it looks like it does not. So they're going to take 1,600, not 2,600. That was a miscalculation on their part. But let's see, if they had 1,000 more than the Secret Barrel plus Just Desserts play, they're taking 1,000 from Just Desserts. They're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1,400 from the Secret Barrel. So yeah, this wouldn't have been lethal here, but based on what they have, I think we probably would have been fine. But yeah, that miscalculation actually did come up. And so they're going to go for a meta there on the 1,000. We're holding the Just Desserts. Like, the reason why we did it this way, this may seem weird, but I want to play around Royal Decree as much as possible. So I gave them a chance to respond to the Secret Barrel with Royal Decree. They did not. And I didn't want to flip the Just Desserts, then have them flip Royal Decree after that. So I'm saving it for like when we draw another Burn Trap and then have lethal even through Royal Decree, right? So that's why I did that. I feel like I'm in a good enough spot where I don't really need to worry too much about, losing anytime soon, especially with that 1,000 eyes out. We draw another Secret Barrel, so we're just going to set 2 to play around like MST, pass back to them, and now we can go for Just Desserts here. Now we can go for Secret Barrel and kill them even through Decree. So it wouldn't have actually mattered if they had 1,000 more here because the Secret Barrel plus Just Desserts is still lethal. They've got the Mirror Force set there, so they don't actually have Decree. So we would have been able to win here either way, but it is good to keep track of, how much damage you're taking and make sure that there are no miscalculations, because that almost could have been a sort of false victory for us there. But we were able to win that one fair and square. And this is a pretty good opener for game 3. Opponent's going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw Heavy Storm. That's pretty good. We're going to think about this a bit, and we're just going to go for the Panda here. Try and attack into the set. I feel like it's probably not something like Magician of Faith. I'd set 3 just in case it's Morphing Jar. I really don't think it's Morphing Jar because they got a full hand, but I was going to set these at the end of the turn anyway, so I don't think it really matters that much. We're going to attack in. It's Xarian Universe. That's a very interesting card here to bring in against this matchup, but it's pretty cool. And our opponent is just going to switch the Xarian to attack, try and attack into the Panda. We've got the Gravity Bind, so we'll flip that up. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw another Gravity Bind. That's pretty good. We set an MST just in case their sets like a Royal Decree. They switch the Universe to defense. We draw a Secret Barrel. We don't want to set that and clog up our zones. We're just going to pass back to our opponent. They're going to go for a Snatch. We've got the MST for the Snatch. I figured it was good to get rid of that. And now our Panda's at 1,800, so that's pretty good. We are going to think about this. We figured the set might be something like Magician of Faith to get back the Snatch Shield, which is a bit awkward, but we kind of have to play into it if that's the case, so we're just going to go for it. Tagging in the set, they take 14 from that, so we're still getting in the burn, even though they are getting the Snatch Shield, unfortunately. And then in main 2, we are going to set the Secret Barrel pass back to them. And this doesn't clog up our zones too much because we still have 1 more zone free. We do have Heavy Storm in our hand, so that's kind of awkward because we might have wanted to use that later. But, I feel like we can save the Heavy Storm. We're not at too much of a risk if they snatch our Panda because we're just taking 800 turn from that. So I figure this should be fine. They go for the Snatch on the Panda there. And they're going to bring out the Death Wombat. That is really unfortunate. I figured if they snatched the Panda, then we got a ton of burn damage with the Desserts and the Barrels, but the Wombat will stop that. So that is quite unfortunate for us. They're going to attack in for 2,400, pass back to us. We draw Trunade though, so that's pretty good. We will gain 1,000 from that. I think Trunade is worth going for because I want to clear the Wombat. So we go for Trunade. They go for Threatening Roar, though, so that will stop us from hitting in to the Wombat here, which is quite unfortunate. Our Panda is still at 1,800, which is nice. But we're just going to set a Gravity Bind, set Adjusters, pass back to them, because if they do go for Snatch here, then I want to use the Heavy on it, or at least have the chance to. And I don't just want to set 1 card in case they've got, like, MST. I don't want them to, like, blind snipe the Gravity Bind, although maybe I shouldn't have worried about that, because they can just chain the MST to the Gravity Bind activation here. So yeah, maybe I just should have set the Gravity Bind itself as opposed to going for more than I needed to here, but I think it was fine. I can lose 1 Just Desserts, and they're going to go for a Heavy of their own to clear our Bind and Just Desserts. That's pretty rough there, but this does make our own Heavy a bit easier to do. Our opponent's going to go for a ton of damage here, getting in for 800 plus 15, plus 1,800 plus 16, which is 5,700 total. That is quite scary. We do gain 1,000 here in the standby phase. So we're at 1,300, but we're still at a rough point. We go for the Heavy Storm here to clear away the Bottomless Trap Hole and that Snatch. We're going to think about exactly what to attack into here, and we're going to decide just to attack into the Wombat. We need to clear that thing so that way we can get in some damage. And now in main 2, we're just going to set the Rat and then set the entire hand because the Heavy is gone. So I feel pretty good about this. you know, we've cleared the Snatch, so that's a good threat gone. They're going to flip down our Panda. They're going to knock the Unknown, which is the Rat. And then they're going to attack into the Panda. We've got the bind for that, so we'll be able to stop them from attacking in. They should not have been able to switch the Universe to defense here because it did declare an attack, but it doesn't actually matter in the end here. We go for Just Search while Sook is still on field to deal 15, and we draw a Ring, which is pretty good. We're going to buff up that Panda to 18. We don't want to attack into the Warrior Lady or crash into the Xarian if it was an attack, so that's why it didn't really end up mattering here. But we're just going to set the Ring, pass back to our opponent. They bring out a Sook to flip down their own Universe, and then they go for Creature Swap on our Panda here. That's a bit awkward because, you know, we could potentially Ring their Sook and still live, but then they give us the Warrior Lady. I mean, the Panda then can't attack into it. So maybe that would have been the play, just, you know, Ring the Sook. So then they drop down to 33. We have double Secret Barrel here. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. The double Secret Barrel is 1,400 each, so that's 2,800. So it's not quite lethal. It's 500 off lethal, but they can't get over the Warrior Lady. So maybe that's correct, but I figure being at 200 life points is very, very scary. So I don't necessarily want to do that. I'd rather just go for a draw just in case they get something. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to Ring the Panda here. And then I'm going to chain to that double Secret Barrel. This dropped them down below 2,300, which is what the Panda is currently at. And so it will cause a draw. So we do go into game 4 here. You know, I think I definitely could have sort of just held on there and survived by just, you know, swapping them the Panda after ringing the Tsukiyomi. But I don't really think it would have been worth it because I think there were many things that did kill us there. So I'm just going to go into the next game here and see what happens. Okay, this is a pretty good start, but our opponent is going first, so it's a bit awkward. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Injection Fairly, which is pretty good. We go for the pot here, draw 2, and we draw some pretty good ones. We're just going to go for the Rat here. We're going to set 2 and pass back to our opponent. They are going to bring out a Breaker. Breaker's a bit awkward. We could potentially use Nightmare Wheel here, but like then they pop the Nightmare Wheel, so we don't want to do that. We just want to save our sets for when they pop with the Breaker. And we're going to bring out another Rat here because we do have Lily to hit over the Breaker potentially next turn. So they're just going to pass back to us, not popping either of our back row. And we go for Nightmare Wheel on the set there just to deal the 500 damage. And I'm going to go for the True Nade. They do know about the Nightmare Wheel now, so they might be more tempted to, you know, pop. But they can't pop anymore if we bring out the Lily and hit over the Breaker there. So I feel like this was fine. You know, them knowing about the Nightmare Wheel, I don't really think changes much. And we're going to leave the set just in case they've got Sidra in hand. So they're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Graceful, which is pretty good. We go for the Graceful here, draw 3, discard 2. And we're going to pitch this Yakugiri in a Heavy Storm because we kind of want our Nightmare Wheels to stay around. True Nade is a bit better for preserving them around. So yeah, I feel fine just pitching the Heavy. And we're just going to pass back to our opponent. We want to draw into something like Geometrio to pair with our Panda. So I'm just waiting for that. We misclick here. I wanted to go for the Nightmare Wheel to just get some more burn damage on them, but we accidentally hit Just Search. So yeah, that is a bit awkward. I mean, it will deal 500 to them. So if they are still playing Stein, you know, we can burn them out for the rest with Nightmare Wheel. But I really wanted to save that Just Search for later. And unfortunately, the misclick did cost me. I could have just said like misclick and then taken it back, but I didn't really want to do that because I wanted to simulate like a more competitive game. If I made that mistake, would I have still been able to win? So I just set the Sangan, set the bind, pass back to my opponent. They go for a Death Wombat here, attack into the Giant Rat. That's perfectly fine. We bring out a Panda, which can now beat over that Death Wombat. So they're going to set 2 more, pass back to us, and we draw Level Limit Area B. That's pretty good. We're going to try attacking into the Wombat, but they've got a Threatening Roar for that. That's exactly why we did not True Nade there, because I figured they probably would have something like that. They're going to go for Snatch on our Panda, which is still at 1800, attack into the set here, and we'll just take the 12, search out something with Sangan here. We're going to search out a Rat, and then they're going to just set 1 more, pass back to us. We draw a Cypher Soldier here, which is pretty decent. We did side these in because, you know, we are facing what seems to be a Warrior deck. And we are going to think about exactly what to do here. We could True Nade to then get back the Panda, but I'd rather just try and bait out something more with the Lily, trying to hit in to the Death Wombat. They do have Saku for the Lily, so that will clear that. But then in main 2, we can just set the Cypher Soldier. They can't get over that with either of their cards there, and we're gaining 1,000 every turn from the Snatch. So I feel like that's pretty good. We set another Nightmare Wheel as well in case we need another Battle Stopper. So our opponent's going to go for a knock on our set Cypher Soldier, though, so that's a bit awkward. but I'm probably happier that they knocked the Cyber Soldier than if they had, stopped our other stuff. So they're going to attack in for 8. They're going to attack in for 16. I feel like I probably should just Nightmare Wheel the Death Wombat here to stop the attack from going through, because next turn I'm probably just going for Tornado here either way to, get back the Panda, hit over the Wombat that way. So it's just good to save damage, but I choose not to do that. I don't think it matters too much because we are gaining 1,000 here off the Snatch. And we are going to go for the True Nade here. No Threatening Roars that time, so everything will get bounced back to hand. And we also get back the Panda, which is really nice. So we are going to attack into the Wombat there, dealing 200. And then in main 2, we're just going to set a bunch, set the Rat, pass back to them. We want to keep the Bind and the Level Limit in hand because, we got some pretty good Battle Stoppers on field already. We've got the Ojama Trio to clog up their zones a bit more. So I feel pretty good about this, and realistically, I feel like these, the Bind and the Limit are going to be more useful than the Nightmare Wheels overall. But, it's tough to say. I Nightmare Wheel their set just so they can't flip it up in case it's like Faith or something. But they do have Heavy Storm, so that will be able to stop that. And we go for a trio here, giving them 3 tokens. So their zones are a little bit clogged. If they want to bring out another monster, they can't really snatch our Panda profitably. But they are going to snatch the Panda anyways. So that's going to have 1,300 attack there. And they're going to attack into the Rat. So they won't be able to clear that. We're gaining 1,000 every turn from this, so I feel pretty good about this. They are going to set 3, pass back to us. We do gain 1,000 from that Snatch Shield there, and we're just going to, commit the house because Heavy's gone, so we don't really need to worry about that. The set could be Magician of Faith, which is awkward, but if they Magician of Faith to get back Heavy, they have to Heavy their own Snatch, which I'm not too upset about, and I feel like we got a pretty good position if they give us back the Panda while they've got a board filled with trio tokens. So we are okay with this turn of events. They're just going to pass back to us. We gain 1,000 more from the Snatch. We're going to set the Secret Barrel, pass back to them. We're just trying to amass lethal damage here. So I feel pretty good about this overall. We draw swords. We could commit the swords now, but I feel like we don't need to. And so I'm just going to save them. They're going to tribute over the Sangan to bring out Cyber Dragon. And now they're going to get a search off the Sangan, searching out a Sinister Serpent, which is a bit awkward because it just gives them one more card in hand for us to Secret Barrel. We gain another 1,000. We set the Justers, pass back to them, and they're going to pass back to us. We just go for Justers in the end phase here. If they've got a Royal Decree, then we can chain like a Secret Barrel to it and still get in a ton of damage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then plus 6 cards in hand would be 3,000 damage total off the Secret Barrel. So I'm fine just, punching them for that if they do have Decree. But it looks like they don't have Decree, so they're going to take that. And then we go for the Secret Barrel because, it doesn't seem like they've got Decree. So that will be the end of the game. And yeah, that was a pretty good showing for the Burn deck. So I think this deck can do well in this meta, as we did see here. But honestly, we were facing a deck that seemed like it was out of GOAT format. It was playing these Sidras, but it was more of a Warrior deck, which is a deck that's playable in GOAT as well. So let's dive into some decks that are a bit more unique to Cyber format. Next up, we got a game against M. Shobes, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on, and we will lose the RPS for this match. So we're going to dive into the games here. And we are going second, which is a bit unfortunate, but we got a pretty good hand overall. We got Lily to just get aggressive here. We got Ceasefire to burn. And so I'm feeling pretty good about this overall. Our opponent's going to open pot Graceful, though, and that is a bit unfortunate. They're going to pitch a Mamanga and a Magic Cylinder, so that is good information for what they might be on. Not necessarily typical cards there. They're going to bring out Sangan, set 1, pass back to us, and we draw a Rat, which is pretty decent. We got to think about exactly what to do here. I could just attack it in the Sangan, but I really don't want to give them access to Stein if that's the one piece they're missing from the combo. We don't know if they're on Stein, but because they're playing Mamanga, which gains life points and could pair with like Steinarch stuff, I feel like they probably are on a Steinarch build. So I don't want to necessarily play into that. I'm just going to go for a Swords, set a Ceasefire, pass back to them, and see what they do here. So they're going to think a bit about this, switch the Sangan defense, activate Level Limit Area B, and pass back to us. Okay. So maybe they're not on a Steinarch build if they're playing Level Limit, or they could just be playing a ton of, like Tornades and things like that to clear their own floodgates before they go for the OTK, which is perfectly a valid option if you're going for the Stein OTK strategy. So we're going to bring out a Panda, try and hit over the Sangan, because they've got to have some way to clear their own level limit if they want to go for the Stein push. They go for a TT here. We could use the Ceasefire now, but I don't necessarily want to do that because that only deals 1,500. It doesn't deal, to a point where we drop them below 5,000. Maybe I should have just done it anyways, just because, like, if they are going for a Stein push, I want to make it a bit more risky for them. But I decided to save it anyways as sort of an unknown threat. But maybe that was a mistake. Either way, it wouldn't have actually mattered in the end here. We set a gravity bind pass back to them. They go for True Nade. And this will unfortunately be lethal damage because they bring out Stein. They pay the 5. They bring out a Cyber Twin Drag in there. And then they go for Megamorph on the Cyber Twin. And actually, if it was just the Megamorph on the Cyber Twin, this wouldn't have actually killed us because we take 56, and then the next attack is 14, and then the final attack from the Cyber Stein would be just 700. But they do have limited removal, so that will just be the end of the game there. So, you know, we did lose to the Stein OTK. We weren't able to burn them down quick enough, but hopefully in game 2 and potentially 3, we'll be able to put up more of a fight there. So we're going to dive into the game 2. Hopefully we get a bit of a better hand to start with. And this is a pretty good one, all things considered. We got Panda, we got Rat, we got a ton of burn cards here. So we're just going to set the house. If they've got heavy, they've got heavy. It's kind of rough. But we can go for Secret Barrel and Ceasefire at least. Maybe I should have saved the Just Desserts, but I figured like I wanted as much burn damage as possible in case the need arose. So I'm just going to set the whole house, and they're just going to set 3, set 4, pass back to us. I feel pretty good about that. We draw Rat. We're going to go for Nightmare Wheel and Ceasefire to deal a bit of damage here. I could have also waited to just set a monster from hand and then go for Ceasefire, play around things like, you know, TT, etc. But I want to try and get in with the Panda to attack over the Morphing Jar and deal some damage through that. So I just go for the Ceasefire now, and we do get rewarded because that is a flip monster that would have been very powerful for them to resolve. We go for Secret Barrel here as well. They go for a Secret Barrel on us, which is very scary because it means that they're probably on a bit of a burn deck of their own. We bring out Panda to try and deal that last bit of damage to get them below the 5,000 threshold. We do have Just Search Heal to deal that as well, but I want to make it seem like, you know, the Panda is what we've got right now to deal that damage and potentially have them use up removal on that because Rat can float into a Panda anyways, so I'd rather get them to use their Battle Stoppers now. And they do use a Mirror Force on that. So I feel pretty good about that. We do have the Just Desserts in case they do have like a True Nade or a Heavy here to try and, you know, stay above the 5,000 threshold. They're going to set 2 pass back to us, and they'll take 5 from the Nightmare Wheel so we can breathe a sigh of relief because now they cannot Stein. So we're going to set a Rat pass back to them, and they're going to go for a pot here, draw 2. And I feel pretty good about this situation. They go for heavy. We do have the Just Desserts there, and they're going to go for ring as well. So they're going to drop down fairly below the Cyberstein range there. And yeah, I feel pretty good about this. They ringed our Rat, which is unfortunate, but we do have another Rat. So we're just going to flip that up, try and attack into the Morphing Jar. I'm trying to play around something like, you know, if they've got Demock in hand and tribute it out to get back a powerful spell, because, you know, maybe this is more of a Stein Gate build, or maybe they've set it into the Stein Gate build. But either way, I'm trying to just, you know, play around what they might potentially have. They're going to set another card there, pass back to us. We draw a Lily, and we actually can go for... No, we can't go for lethal here. We could have potentially, if we had gone for True Nade, just attacked our Rats into both their sets and then attacked them directly with Lily, but I don't want to play that riskily. I'm just going to attack one Rat in now. I figure we can set up a lethal line next turn. So we're just going to set 1 pass back to them. They set another pass back to us. We draw a Morphing Jar, which is pretty good. I feel like I can go for lethal push here because we go for True Nade. What we can do is we can just attack in the set with Injection Fairy Lily and then attack directly for 28, which will be lethal. So I figure that should be pretty good. They go for Poison though, so they will gain 12. So now that lethal line doesn't quite work, but what we can do is we can just attack in the set with one of the Rats. If the Rat does clear it, then we can get in for lethal with Lily and another Rat. So I figure, you know, we've gone for True Nade already. I might as well take that risk. So let's try and go for it. We attack into the set, and that will just be the end of the game because our opponent does not have a defensive monster there that can withstand our Rat. So we're going to go into game 3, and I just mainly keep the deck the same. I think I bring in Karivos for the Stein OTK just to dodge around that, but this is a really, really good hand. We got Trio to stop things like, you know, Cyber Dragon coming down. We get Secret Battle, we get Gekiri Panda. So we're feeling very, very good about this. They set 4 pass back to us. We draw Graceful Charity as well. So we're feeling on top of the world here. We go for Graceful, draw 3. We gotta think about which 2 to pitch. We pitch an Exiled and a Nightmare Wheel. I think this might have been a mistake because those are both strong cards. We do have double trio in hand, but I want the double trio as like insurance in case they manage to like pop 1 or they chain Royal Decree to one of the trios. I want to have the other in hand just to, you know, make sure that they can't stop a trio play from going through since we do have Gekiri Panda here. So maybe that's a bit of a mistake, but I just set, you know, Koala and I set 4, pass back to them. They go for a trio of their own though. So that is very rough because then we get 3 Ojama tokens as well. But And if they've got like just desserts or secret battle, etc., that'd be really bad for us. They flip up a stealth bird as well, and this is where having the nightmare wheel or the exiled force would be really good because we could deal with that stealth bird. But unfortunately, we don't have those anymore. We do have this panda to try and attack in to that stealth bird, which is pretty good. We also have breaker here. We're going to bring out the panda, buff that up to 28, and try attacking into the stealth bird. Unfortunately, they've got magic cylinder, which we did see in game 1, so maybe we should have played around it more. But yeah, we'll take 28 there. I feel like we're still in a pretty good spot overall because, oh, well, never mind. Okay, they've got Snatch Seal, so that puts us in a really bad spot. They're going to attack into one of our tokens. We take 2,100 from that. They're going to flip the Stealth Bird, deal another 1,000 to us, and we're in a really, really risky spot. They flip down the Stealth Bird. We draw Morphing Jar, which is okay, but they've got a Secret Barrel, and that will end the game. If they didn't have that Secret Barrel or another way to stop us here, what we could have done is we could have brought out Breaker, popped the Snatch, and then gotten back our Panda and been in an okay spot. But just would have been really awkward here. But it seems like they sided into burn, so they were likely to have things like Secret Barrel, Just Desserts, etc. So we were probably losing that anyways, no matter how long, this game took. Because, unfortunately, we didn't necessarily keep the right cards off the Graceful. I think maybe I should have just, pitched the second trio and then kept a wheel or an exiled force. But maybe that's too much hindsight talking. But either way, very, very good games against the Stein OTK deck. Unfortunately, we did lose to the Stein OTK in game 1, which does show that, while the idea of this deck to turbo out burn damage and get them below that 5,000 range can happen, it oftentimes doesn't. And, that is an unfortunate fact about this deck. If your opponent, gets rid of your stall cards with, Trinade or Heavy, which they are playing a ton of, and then get in for the Stein OTK, then you just lose the game, right? And even if you're able to burn them down to some degree, you're not necessarily going to burn them down below the 5k range, and thus you probably will be losing this Stein OTK just like any other deck in the format. But I don't want to end this on too depressing of a note for the deck, so let's dive into a more fun match with M-Shobes, playing a bit of a different deck. Okay, we got our last game here against M-Shobes, and we're diving in. They will win the RPS yet again, so they are going to be going first here, but this is a really good hand. We got Charity, we got Panda, we got Barrel, we get Cyberjar if we really want it. Our opponent's just going to set 4, though, and pass. That's a bit scary, honestly. We're just going to go for a Graceful here, draw 3, and pitch 2. We're going to pitch a Cyberjar and a Death Coil up because they don't really have much of a hand, and I also don't want to draw them into a monster with the Jar. So now we're just going to go for Lily here, try and bait out removal if they've got it, try and attack in for 34 if they don't. So they do have the removal in the form of Sakuretsu, so we're just going to set 2, pass back to our opponent. They are going to think about this a bit, just set 1, go for Pot here, draw 2, and they did that to play around Dashoot, which I think was very smart of them, and they're going to set 1, pass back to us. Now, I do draw Trinade here, and I got a bit of a weird sequencing play here, but I have the read that set is Magician of Faith, because otherwise, I feel like most other things you just summon out and attack in. Yes, I have 2 back row, but they've got 4 back row, so they're not really too concerned if they lose their monster to one of my back row. So I feel like that is a Moth or a powerful flip monster that, that makes the most sense to me. So what I do here is, because I figure they have a Solemn in the back row and I want my Ceasefire to for sure resolve, is I go for a Trinade here to bounce back their entire field. If they've got Solemn, I figured they'd fire it here because they're afraid of potentially being OTK'd. But it looks like they are going to think about this and let that go through. So now I have an option here to fire Ceasefire and just try and, flip up that set, get info on what it is. If it's something that I can beat over with Panda, maybe summon up Panda to beat over it. But I choose not to do this because I have such a strong read that it is a just set flip monster. And I feel like I can just save the Ceasefire for next turn when I can deal a little bit more burn damage by setting a monster of my own. And I don't necessarily want to just bring out the Panda and attack into it because I don't have protection for the Panda either. I just have a Secret Barrel and a Ceasefire. So what I'm going to do here is, after that Trinade resolves, I'm not going to chain the Ceasefire to it. What I'm going to do instead is set the Big Shield Gardenet, set Secret Barrel, set Ceasefire, and then the standby phase, when I know they don't have Solemn set, go for the Ceasefire. I think that this is a smart play at the time when I was doing it. Unfortunately, the set is Mermaid Knight, and that card eats Big Shield Gardenet alive if they've got Umi, because this thing can attack twice. So if they do have Umi or Legendary Ocean, which is called Umi, then we have made a terrible, terrible miscalculation. In my defense, I don't think there's many ways to expect that, you're going to be up against a Mermaid Knight. And most of the time, the flip scenario would be the more likely outcome here. But Clearly that did not work out here, and I could have potentially played this a little bit differently to dodge around that situation, but they're just going to activate a Legendary Ocean, attack into the Big Shield Guard Knights to attack, then attack over it, so we take 16 from that. They're going to set the house yet again and pass back to us, and we're in a bit of a tough spot. Level Limit Area B is dead against the Legendary Ocean because that drops the Mermaid Knight down to level 3, so it can attack through the level limit, which is very unfortunate. We bring out this Breaker here, and they have Ring for that, so they'll be able to pop the Breaker before it can pop something like a Legendary Ocean. So that's kind of rough. We set a level limit because I don't want to activate it. I mean, they could have something like a Terra King Salmon or a Giga Gaga Gigo in hand to bring out here and attack in for more damage. And in that case, the level limit would have been correct, but they're attacking in for 34 here anyways. So I figured it's better just to bluff a set than to go for level limit, which doesn't actually stop anything really. Besides the Gagagigo or Giga Gagagigo, not Gagagigo, because Gagagigo itself can still attack under it. But I still feel like this is a fine play. Just bluffing. Maybe they don't want to attack him with Mermaid Knight into that empty board. Maybe they don't want to play into TT or something. But it looks like they're just going to attack in. They go for Terraforming here to add another Legendary Ocean to hand, decked in a little bit, and then set one pass back to us. We draw no Geometry, which is okay. What we can do is we can bring up Panda here, and then we can set the trio, pass back to them. I just got to hope that the trio goes through, because then they will remove their own Mermaid Knight. If I had set the Panda, then it would get beaten over by the Mermaid Knight anyways. They're going to attack in here, and we are just going to go for the trio. They've got Solemn, though, and unfortunately, Secret Barrel will only deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 2, which is 1600. So unfortunately, we will not be able to kill with Secret Barrel after that Solemn, and we will indeed lose here. So very, very interesting game one. Definitely a deck that I was not expecting at all. For siding, I actually take out the level limits. I take out the gravity binds because they're not really that useful against this deck. I don't want to just brick on them. So I take those out. I think I bring in things like, I forget exactly what I bring in. I don't bring in Tribe, that's for sure, because Tribe, if it has to call an Aqua, will just pop itself, so that's kind of awkward. But yeah, I keep in the desk walls for sure. I set a Nightmare Wheel Justice Urge here, pass back to them, and they are going to bring out an Abyss Soldier. That's a bit awkward for us because that'll bounce back our Koala there, and they're going to activate Legendary Ocean, attack in. I could have potentially used Nightmare Wheel here because if they bounce it with the Abyss Soldier, then I don't really care because I just reset it next turn, and it just is another discard from their hand. But I figure I want to go for Exiled Force on the Abyss Soldier next turn anyways, so that'll get cleared. And if they don't bounce it, I don't want to lose my Nightmare Wheel. So they're just going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Ring, which is also pretty nice. We go for the Exiled Force on the Abyss Soldier, set the Ring, pass back to them, and they're going to add back that Sinister Serpent to hand. They are going to bring out a Giga Gaga Gigo here, and that will be 2650, so they're attacking in. I could Ring it, but I'm just going to Nightmare Wheel it instead. So that will indeed go through. And now they'll take 500 damage during each of our standby phases. We're going to set the Rat. We're going to set the Desert Sunlight as well. Pass back to our opponent. If they try and knock our Rat, we've got the Desert Sunlight to flip it up, which is kind of nice. And now they're going to think about this a bit, and they're just going to pass back to us. They'll take another 5 from the Nightmare Wheel. And we draw Ogeometry, which is really good. So we're just going to set that pass back to them. We do have our zones clogged here, but we can always just use the Ogeometry just to get 3 monsters on this side of the field and open up a zone. And they are going to go for MST on our Nightmare Wheel. That's a little bit awkward, but ultimately fine. They go for a Premat as well, bringing back an Abyss Soldier here. And they are indeed going to use Prio, pitching the Serpent to bounce back our set. And we're going to chain the Ring to that, so that way they can't bounce back more of our field. We're also going to chain a Justice Urge here. And then we're going to chain a Ogeometry because this should drop them down really, really low. Unfortunately, it won't quite kill them because, they still do have 1700 left after all that. So we miscalculated a little bit on whether it can kill them, but I do think that my desk wall is still pretty good at burning a little bit more, getting in for 400 more damage. They're going to set another pass back to us. We draw Mirror Force, which is really nice. We could have just set Rat this turn if we didn't draw the Mirror Force, just as a battle protector. But since we do have the Mirror Force, we're just going to set the Morphing Dart instead. Actually, we're just using it as a Book of Tayu basically here. So we're going to set the Morphing Dart, go for the Desert Sunlight just to flip it up and draw into more of our deck, try and draw more burn spells, or burn traps in this case. And we draw into Secret Barrel and Justice Urge, so that's pretty good. So we're just going to set those, pass back to our opponent. And in standby, we're going to go for Secret Barrel. They do have the Solemn for that, but we've got this Justice Urge. We're going to go for that as well. And if they don't have a way to stop this, then that will be the end of the game. And it looks like they do not. So we're going to go into the game 3 here. So they did about they debate about whether they should have like solemned the trio or not earlier, and that is definitely an option. Maybe it would have been the correct thing to do, but if they solemn the trio, they're still taking a ton of damage, and then I can still probably burn them out for more, so it's tough to say in the moment for sure. But they are going to be going first here. So we're going to be going second. Hopefully we can manage to win against this Legendary Ocean deck. But it is a very, very cool deck. I'll probably feature a variant of it on the channel. I think this is the ultimate evolution of the Mad Lobster deck that M-Shobes was playing before. And I do think that this deck does look a lot more threatening than Mad Lobster deck. So this will probably be what I do for that deck in the future. But this is a very interesting hand. We're just going to bring out the Rat, attack into the Giga Gaga Gigo, and try and bring out a Lily to beat over that Giga Gaga Gigo. This does lose to if they've got, like, you know, Snatch Steal or something like that, but we've got MST for the Snatch Steal, so I'm not too worried about that. The big thing is if they've got, like, Abyss Soldier, bounce of MST, and then they've got Snatch as well for the Lily. That's going to be really awkward for us. But I just felt it was better to go aggressive here. Maybe I should have brought an Exiled Force instead to just pop the Gigo that way and put ourselves at less risk of losing in the following turn if they've got like Snatch and stuff. But I figure this should be fine. We set the MST as well, and they're going to bring out this Abyss Soldier. Prio, Bounce are set, and they pitch a Penguin Soldier, which is pretty cool to see. They go for Snatch, and that will be the end of the game. So I think I lost this one by just getting too aggressive. I think it was fine going aggressive here because, like, you know, I do have Trinade to bounce back their back row if they had a way to stop Lily. I had Panda to hit over, you know, set monsters. So I wanted to go aggressive. Maybe I just got too aggressive. Maybe if I'd gone for Exiled, it would have been better. They've got Knock and Terror King in hand. So if I'd gone for Exiled, they probably just would have brought a Terror King, attacked in for 26. And then we still would have been in a bad spot. I guess I could have MST'd the Legendary Ocean there instead, just to, you know, deprive them of being able to get out things like Terror King. Then they would have gone for Abyss, attacked in for 18. I wouldn't really have a good way to deal with the Abyss, especially if they set a bluff. I could have summoned up Breaker and attacked over the Abyss after MSTing the Legendary Ocean, but it's kind of like this is all playing too much in like hindsight of knowing their hand exactly. And knowing their hand exactly, there are other plays that I should have made, but I think that, you know, the only thing that like super punishes this play is like the Abyss plus the Snatch there. But they had that, and that is how these games go sometimes. So that will be the end of the game here. So I will indeed lose that one. And again, I think probably Exiled Force would have been the safer play, but yeah, I think I probably misplayed this burn deck multiple times throughout the video, not just in these final games here. And that shows how hard of a deck it is. I mean, burn is a very difficult deck. It takes a very special type of player to really be able to master this deck. And it's a very powerful deck once you do master it. And I'm very curious to see how it actually does in Cyber format as a whole, because I do think there is a niche for it. If, you know, people can build maybe an even more aggressive burn deck just to get in that initial 5,000 damage, maybe that's the way to build this deck. Because if you can do that right away, you know, get the opponent out of Stein range, then their deck becomes a lot worse. And you've got a really good matchup against one of the best decks in the format. But let me know what you think about the burn deck down in the comments below. And also let me know any misplays that I made with it. I'm always trying to improve with these decks, and this is definitely one of the ones that I have the most room for improvement with. But I hope that you enjoyed the video as always. If you did enjoy it, definitely do subscribe to the channel. I got a lot more gameplay videos like this. And also, you know, I've got some tournament coverages coming up. So we're going to be holding a locals for this format in the YDF from Zero Discord server this weekend. Link in the description down below. We're also going to be holding a monthly tournament in that as well. So definitely join that if you're interested in playing this format. Also, you know, if you want to support me directly, I have a Patreon linked in the description down below as well. And if you do sign up for the Patreon and get shout out in these videos, so big shout outs to Tyler Compton, GMYFS, Dumpstruck, Porkchop Goon, Brendan Donker, and Rincewind for supporting me in this way. It really does mean a lot to me and motivates me to make more videos like this one. But if you enjoyed it, leave a like on the video, and I really do hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.